Jagex is changing the poll system in Old School RuneScape. That's right, this got overlooked a little bit because of the launch of Gridmaster, but let's take a look at what Jagex is doing to improve the polling system. It's going to let them poll things in a different way in the future. So if we go down here, you can see this image where Jagex is showing off some of the new stuff they're adding. You see they have the regular yes/no option. In this one, they have what looks like a multiple answer question, and then here on question 3, it looks like you're going to be able to put text into the polling system, which is probably going to be a mess for Jagex because God knows what people are going to submit to them through this, but that's besides the point. They said, polls have always been the backbone of Old School RuneScape, giving you the final say on what content makes it into the game and making sure it stays true to the spirit of Old School. It is one of the most unique things about OSRS. Truly, this is democracy manifest. The system has served us well over the years, but it is also a little limited. Until now, we've only been able to ask very simple tick box questions, and even then, we have been tied up by the tech behind the system. We know that sometimes this left us unable to get a full picture of how the community was feeling about an idea. That is why we are expanding what the poll system can do. These changes will not affect the polling charter or the 70% pass rate. That core principle remains untouched. Instead, we are giving ourselves more ways to hear from you, to test the waters before big decisions, and to make sure your feedback is shaping the game at every step. So let's dive into the improvements that will make polling more flexible, more engaging, and more informative than ever before. Why the change? What do we mean when we talk about the poll system being limited? Question types are limited. We can only ask simple single choice questions, which means feedback is often too black and white. Poll timing is clunky. Launching or closing a poll requires certain developers with specific access to be online at the right moment. On top of that, we can only run one poll at a time. Some updates have been pushed back because we simply can't poll what is required for the time it'd be ready for release. Survey fatigue is real. When we need deeper insight, we sometimes send out external surveys, but these can often suffer from fewer responses the more we send, and it's not ideal having to pull people away from the game. The new system addresses all of these problems. It makes polling more flexible, more accessible, and more player friendly. What's in the new poll system? We can now go far beyond simple yes/no. Examples include single choice, same as before, but essential for yes/no decisions. Now, I don't actually like how they have the bright white circles here. I feel like these should be gray to fit in with the rest of the UI here, but that's just me being a little fussy. And then of course, we're gonna have multiple choice questions. We can pick from several options on a list, like which of these rewards interest you the most. We're gonna have free text. You can put your own text directly in the game, useful for gathering opinions in your own words. And like I said, this is gonna be a disaster. I don't know how they're gonna sort through all of the typed out answers. Are they gonna hire some guy to read like 300,000 slop entries of people typing random bad words into this? Ranked choice. They're gonna have ranked choices. You're gonna be able to sort lists so that you can say, oh, my favorite little Zik transmog is the maiden, or you could swap their places, bringing them up and down in the list to show them which is your favorite and which is your least favorite. Then we've got a matrix question, which are the worst type of survey questions because I usually always answer strongly like or strongly dislike. It always feels weird to put something in like, but I kind of feel like I have to do it every time. And you never want to leave anything in neutral because that doesn't mean anything. So anything you're going to put into neutral, you always put into dislike. It's a big mess. I hate this type of question, but I understand why they're adding it. And on top of all that, they're going to change the poll formatting. As you can see here, there's going to be a new interface for the polls. Polls can now include in-game text blocks, images, headers, and even links that take you to blogs or bigger design explanations. This means we can provide more context directly inside the poll menu without you always needing to leave the game, which is good because like when they just polled the sailing pet, they give you the options on which sailing pet you want to choose, but you have to click the link and then it opens the Old School RuneScape website in order to actually see what the proposed pets look like. So this is actually a good change where you won't have to leave the game every time you want to vote on something. On top of that, they're going to have different poll types. As you can see here, there's a little bit more confusing of an interface, but I'm sure it'll be explained. Not everything has to be a formal yes/no vote. We now have the ability to run lock-in polls. A lock-in poll is a commitment to release the proposed update if it reaches the usual 70% pass and remains reasonably possible for us to ship. If we hit problems during development, we may change or cancel the update, and we'll explain why if that happens. So this is a new type of poll, which I'm assuming is this icon here for lock-in. Then they have green light polls, which you can see the icon here, that is a green light. A green light poll asks whether we should explore the idea further. If it reaches the usual 70% pass, we will develop a fuller design and bring it back via lock-in poll, so you can decide whether to commit to it being added to the game. And then they have an example of, do you want raids 4? Details will be added at a later date and rewards will be polled separately. This would be considered to be a lock-in poll rather than a green light as it has been in the past. A typical green light poll might instead look like, should we explore adding a new area to the game themed around cabbages? The emphasis on exploring, adding something that is not fully fleshed out, but will give us a good indication of whether or not you feel like it's worth us spending time refining an idea further before we fully commit to adding it to the game via a lock-in poll. So basically a green light poll is just to get your interest in the idea and see if anybody actually wants what they're talking about. And then a lock-in poll will be if they want to actually make it. And then on top of that, they're going to have opinion surveys, flexible flexible questionnaires that let us gather input before content is ready to share for wider feedback. These two new poll types are especially useful for early stage designs where we'd rather hear your thoughts first before locking anything in. Now this is a big one, they're changing the eligibility. By default, polls will still require members with 25 hours of playtime and 300 total levels. But now we have tools to refine eligibility for specific polls or even specific questions. For example, we might want feedback from players of a certain combat level or restrict a question to players who have engaged with a particular piece of content. These are mainly going to be used for opinion-based polls or survey questions rather than content that might be coming into the game. If we feel like there's a need for I think they mean additional, requirements to vote on a particular poll question, we will use this with care. We'd like to share our thoughts on how we believe it'll work. Personally, I think this is just a way for them to push through more unpopular PvP changes like they have in the past, but that's just me being a little bit of a pessimist. They say that the default stays broad. Content polls that add to the game will continue to follow the standard rules, including a 70% pass requirement and the usual account eligibility. Targeting is mainly for opinion polls or surveys where specialist input helps, ways for everyone to be heard. When we target a question to specialists, we will look to pair it with a wider opinion poll, a free text question, or a survey open to a broader audience. This helps us capture both expert experience and general sentiment, clear reasons shared in advance. If we plan to restrict a poll or question, we will say so before it goes live. We will explain who is eligible, how the criteria work, and why this approach is better for that case. For example, we may ask only players with experience of a boss to rate its drop table, while still running a separate opinion poll open to everyone. Simple game-relevant criteria. Criteria will be based on in-game progress you can understand and verify, such as a quest completed, kill count, total level, league rank, or recent activity flag. It's not going to be a blanket change. We are still exploring the best use cases. Targeted questions will be the exception, not the rule. We will review results and share a short note on who was eligible and why, so the process is clear. Examples you might see in game. This question is visible to players with at least 10 Vorkath kills. We are using this criterion to collect feedback from players familiar with the fight. A separate opinion poll on Vorkath is open to all players. They're also now going to be able to run multiple polls at the same time. The new system lets us run more than one poll at a time, something we couldn't do before. That means smaller targeted polls. We won't need to wait for the big headline content polls to finish. This I think is a pretty big one because there's been a lot of stuff like quality of life stuff that has been stuck in the pipeline simply because they haven't had time to poll it. And then automation and scheduling, they can actually schedule polls in advance this time, which isn't important for any of us to know, but it's cool, I guess. And then they're going to have a new look for web and a more robust system. While the poll section on the Old School RuneScape website holds a lot of nostalgic charm, it has been well overdue a revamp, which includes presenting the results in the same way the game does. No more inconsistencies with voting percents, as we will finally be counting skip votes in the results displayed. Hurrah. Now what this is referring to is if you looked at the poll booth in game to see the results of a poll, and then you looked at the OSRS website, you would see two different results for the poll because the website didn't count skip votes, whereas the in-game poll system would count skip votes into the final percentages. So it was always weird and kind of hard to figure out what exactly was going on if you didn't know about that. And so that's everything they're willing to share for now. The improved poll system gives us tools to gather your thoughts in more meaningful ways, while still holding on to the principle that has defined Old School since 2013. If it is coming into the game, it needs 70% of your votes. Unless of course it's a change to the poll system, in which case we're going to do that ourselves without asking. I'm joking, but kind of true. With these changes, you will see more variety in the kinds of questions we ask, more opportunities to share your views, and smoother processes behind the scenes to make sure polls run on time. From opinion polls that test early ideas to flexible question types that go beyond a simple yes or no. This is about giving you more ways to shape the game you love. What's even more exciting is that we're also going to be bringing in all the data from previous polls, meaning you will have the power to see what you voted for in each one. Have fun going back in time and seeing how past you voted. And then we've got Mod Lycos here adding a little bit of a note saying, because polls have been so important to OSRS's history, we wanted to make sure that we did them justice. We think there's a subset of longtime players that will really get a kick out of going through the older ones and seeing what they had voted for or against at the time. I actually agree with this. It's going to be cool to go back and see what I voted for like 3 or 4 years ago. We are excited to roll out the new system soon and cannot wait to see what you think of it. As always, keep an eye on the news page and our socials for details on when the first improved poll will go live, and be ready to make your voice heard. And then they sign it off with all of the mods here. So I actually think that this is a good system. I think that the polling system has been outdated and kind of clanky for a very long time, and I'm glad to see them changing it and adding new question types. I don't know how exactly it's going to work, especially with the text input questions. I feel like that's going to be a disaster for them, but as a player, that's not my concern. My only real feedback is I hate that they just have plain white boxes and a plain white text box here. I feel like it would be much better if they would make the background on them gray or brownish gray, whatever color this is, so that it fits into the UI in game a little bit more clearer. And I also kind of hope that they use the old school font instead of whatever font this is. But those are nitpicks, and I'm genuinely just happy to see that they're actually doing stuff to make changes that will actually improve the game. So I'm happy to see this. I'm actually pretty excited for the new poll system. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Does this matter at all to you? Do you think it's going to be nice, or do you not care? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. Remember to like and subscribe. Have a great day, and God bless you.